Today's Patreon shoutout goes to Z. Revisiting the previously popular Sythis, hopefully you all don't mind a revisit to this commander, up against the underrated commander Adeline, Phenax, God of Deception, and Hapatra. We've got mana, and Archon of Sun's Grace, pretty good. Don't have any enchantments in the enchantress deck, unfortunately. I wonder if I should risk a mulligan on that for that very reason. Yeah, I'm going to be greedy there and go for a mulligan, and yeah, that's looking better because we've got another enchantress piece there, so we'll draw 2 from the Karmic Justice, potentially. Draw 1 on the Argothian Enchantress when we go for our commander. So being rewarded for our greed, which is a nice change of pace here, get into another land, so we'll go for the Arctic Tree Line, which is a tap land, and pass. Seeing these other 2 players skip their turns, both Phenax and Adeline, so I'm wondering if we'll be able to sneak the Argothian Enchantress past any counter magic here. Well, we'll force Phenax to use it, and Phenax is holding up priority, so might be an Arcane Denial or Mana Leak, something like that, but they do allow the Argothian Enchantress into play. And now we see the first commander, Hapatra, Vizier of Poisons, coming into play, which is also allowed by the Phenax. Commander Sphere by the Dimir player. And there we see another commander in Adeline, Resplendent Cathar. So it might be time for the Grasp of Fate sooner than I would have hoped. We get into another Enchantress in Sythis and Champion. Yeah, it might be that the Phenax player is waiting on a board wipe, so probably not going to go for the Sythis and Champion anytime soon. Probably go for a tap land with the Verdant Catacombs, so we'll play that out and go for our commander. And that will cantrip thanks to the Argothian Enchantress. Gets us into a command tower. And then we can hold up Swords to Plowshares on the Verdant Catacombs. Snakeskin Veil, something like that. I doubt our opponents will play around an untapped land, but we can try them. Talisman of Resilience. And then Hapatra playing a Rampant Growth down to 5 cards in hand. Noteworthy that there is also a High Market in play as well for a slow sack outlet. And then the commander going straight in towards the wide open Phenax player. The minus counter went on to Sythis from the Hapatra, so a 1/1 Death Toucher coming into play there. Might have to go for the Grasp of Fate sooner than I would have liked. Maybe can wrap up 3 commanders if our opponent plays Phenax here. They do not, going for Mnemonic Wall. Enters the battlefield, return an instant or sorcery from graveyard's hand. I don't think they had one yet. Idyllic Grange is a plus counter on a creature you control, so a 2/5 the Adeline now is, and then going for, that's excellent, Anointed Procession, so going to get 6 tokens here, and yeah, thought they'd do that, swinging in towards us, likely that they can get down their Adeline again straight away next turn. We're not going to be able to block the Adeline or the tokens coming in towards us, so that's 10 damage on us already. Not managing to ramp yet particularly well, unfortunately, so Sigil of the Empty Throne seems like it's quite a ways away. Oh, I forgot to go for the tap land in Verdant Catacombs, actually, not to worry. We're only spending 3 mana this turn anyhow. Let's go for the Grasp of Fate. And we will still draw 2 cards here, gain a life from Sythis as well, although we do have to worry about commander damage from the Adeline. Clearing a land off the top, we do get an Archon of Sun's Grace, that's really good. So down that comes, everyone's tapped out. We'll get rid of Hapatra, Mnemonic Wall, and the Adeline. Could get rid of Phenax's mana, but I'm not in any particular rush to make any more enemies out of my opponents. I imagine they're all looking in our direction anyway. And I dare say these human tokens are going to come in our way as well. So, yeah, it's just a case of hoping that we survive long enough at this point. Get rid of the Wooded Foothills to the discard to hand size rule. Also drew in to open the vaults there as well, by the way, so we can reanimate all of our enchantments. I don't think that's going to be relevant this game. Noteworthy that Sythis is an enchantment creature, though. Okay, Bastion of Remembrance. Triggers on whenever a creature you control dies, so thankfully doesn't trigger on the human tokens. Not seeing the Hapatra hit play again. We do see a Diabolic Intent with the human token being sacrificed, the human token coming from the enchantment. So Hapatra gets to tutor here. We'll have 4 cards in hand after that. And a decent chunk of mana. Dimir Signet for Phenax. And that is followed by Sphinx's Tutelage. Whenever you draw a card, each opponent mills 2. If 2 non-land cards that share a colour were milled this way, repeat the process. So up against a mono-white deck here, so they could get milled out twice as fast as us. They do drop a land, so could see Adeline straight away here. Don't forget Adeline triggers on any creatures attacking. It doesn't have to be Adeline itself. But instead going for Sanctuary Lockdown, giving humans +1/+1. 2 untapped humans you control, and tap a target creature an opponent controls. I mean, they've got 12 power here, and we don't want to block any of it. And an Honor of the Pure as well, so yep, 6/3/3s, that's a pretty cool way to build this deck, is white weenies and then Anthem effects. Okay, but spreading the damage, which I do appreciate, so holding back a 3/3, 1 goes in at Phenax, 2 at myself, and 2 in at Hapatra as well. So in response to that, I will go for the Shockland, which I should have done already. Actually, I'll go for the Scattered Groves, because I seldom want to use that as a cycle land to draw something. So we managed to survive that a little bit more unscathed than I thought we were going to be. Get into another basic. So we'll throw down the basic. One of the jewels cares about us having 2 basics in place, so it's good to get that out of the way as soon as we can. And then I was thinking it'd be good to get Sigil of the Empty Throne in play, ready for next turn, but this has been a pretty fast game, so I don't want to draw the ire of the human tokens whilst they are spreading the damage. So I will go for the Archon of Sun's Grace here, I think. Doesn't trigger any card draw, but it does set us up slightly for the turns to come, and hopefully we'll be able to block some humans with the Archon of Sun's Grace. I'm hoping that Hapatra starts looking more towards Adeline than us, because we are going pretty slow here. The fact that all the tokens didn't come in towards us means that we don't necessarily have to gain a lot of life with Sythis this turn either, not that it's necessarily something that we were going to do anyway. Like I said, struggling on ramp at the moment. See if we can suss out what the Diabolic Intent went for here. Untapping all of his mana and then tapping it down again, so maybe casting something different. Going for the Hapatra Vizier of Poisons, which obviously he didn't tutor for. We have consistently held up white mana as well, which might put the thought in our opponent's head that we're holding up swords. Like I said, I don't think they'll play around us having swords, but it's a good seed to plant in your opponent's head. And now it's a Praetor's Grasp. That goes on to the Hapatra player, so not sure what exactly they're looking for. Maybe a Toxic Deluge. They do have 3 mana held up. And it is a black player that they targeted. Wouldn't be completely against a Toxic Deluge at this point, because we do have a human army to deal with. Deciding on a card here, not that any of us know what it is, as it is face down in the exile zone. And following that up with a Wall of Frost, so obviously not going for a counterspell or a board wipe there. Wouldn't have thought that our opponent would want to play a creature into a board wipe. Now, the fact that we've got Archon of Sun's Grace could encourage the white player to swing everything in towards us. They'll lose a token in the process unless they've got another Anthem. And they're going for Adeline, so yeah, they're going to get a bunch more tokens here, whichever way they decide to swing. Adeline is currently a 9/6 by the way, but it's about to get bigger. Okay, that's really good. The Archon of Sun's Grace has managed to hold off the human tokens, which is exactly what I was hoping for. So 2 in at Phenax and 2 in towards Hapatra. And that means that each opponent gets a couple of tokens swinging in towards them, so we can negate some of this damage. It'll be 3 that hits us and then 3 that hits Archon of Sun's Grace for 3 life, so effectively losing no life here, but taking our opponent down a token. And I'm hoping that Adeline is looking like a massive threat at this point, because it is a 15/6, and I dare say that there's means of giving that thing evasion. Only 4 cards left in hand over there. Wall of Frost blocks one of the tokens, of course, so that will freeze that until Adeline's turn after the next one. Therefore, sending Adeline back down to a 14/16, leaving a couple of 3/3 humans unblocked, or untapped even. And we get into a Seal of Cleansing, so can we dissuade Adeline from attacking us even further? We can threaten the Anointed Procession going down there. Let's throw down Command Tower. Yeah, if we had an extra mana from some ramp, we could go Seal or Sigil of the Empty Throne, followed by Seal of Cleansing. Unfortunately, not in a position to do that, so it's Karmic Justice into Seal of Cleansing, hope that we draw into some more enchantments here. I'll go for the Seal of Cleansing first because it's cheaper and we might draw into something that we'd rather play than Karmic Justice. So we draw 2 and gain a life. And there we see ourselves a Journey to Nowhere along with a Miri's Guile. So I'm thinking Journey to Nowhere on the Adeline is pretty good. And the Archon of Sun's Grace triggers on an enchantment entering as opposed to being cast. So we get the Pegasus token there. Yeah, I'm swayed more towards Journey to Nowhere now. So we'll go for the Miri's Guile again in case we draw into something we'd rather have. Again, drawing 2 cards. The risk here being that we're showing our opponents just how good our Enchantress stuff is. Okay, Solitary Confinement might actually be even better. Got a Wild Growth there as well, so I'm glad I went for the Miri's Guile now, as well as the Seal of Cleansing, because we can go Wild Growth into Solitary Confinement. Unfortunately, the Wild Growth goes on to a non-basic land here. Non-basics are more likely to go down than basics are, but Strip Mine's legal in this format anyway, so I don't think it matters. Gonna put the Wild Growth on Scattered Groves because it's not a snow permanent, and there is an enchantment that cares about snow lands in this deck. Can't remember what it's called, but we might end up putting that on the dual land. Probably goes on the basics, but I'll play around that anyway. Drew into a land and Soul Snare, so really starting to get into the groove of things here. We will go for the Solitary Confinement though, so that we don't have to worry about damage being dealt to us. And we're back up to 27. I am going to swing in with Archon of Sun's Grace at Adeline, so that we go up to 30. Drawing into Greater Auramancy would be really good next turn, as would Aura Shards. Yeah, so we discard a couple of lands and something else here. We've got Open the Vaults, so does it necessarily matter what we discard? Well, think about that bridge when we come to it. Let's attack in with Archon of Sun's Grace towards Adeline. So Adeline going down to 36, we go up to 30, a much healthier life total, but we've still got that 8 commander damage on us. Yeah, as much as having a couple of creature removal spells is good, this is... oh, it's attacking creatures that are attacking you or a planeswalker you control. So yeah, I'll get rid of the Soul Snare and a couple of lands here, because Journey to Nowhere can get rid of any creature. So leaving the Adeline in play there so that our opponents still have a big threat to worry about. And Auron Frostfang now. No particularly good attacks for the Hapatra player. They'll freeze down their commander to the Wall of Frost, so yeah, I'm not sure what they want to do here. It is the commander itself that wants to deal combat damage. Alright, so willing to have their commander frozen. Maybe they're trying to have the Dimir player risk losing their Wall of Frost, just hoping that the Dimir player lets it through perhaps. If they do, then it's likely that our Sythis leaves play here. So yeah, they do let it through. Nothing going on in the chat, so that's obviously just the unwritten agreement that these two have had with each other. They've both had the same idea of getting rid of Sythis, I imagine. Luckily, the Argothian Enchantress has Shroud. Oh no, surprisingly, Hapatra is getting the minus counter, putting that onto the Adeline, which is a 14-16, or a 14-6, sorry. They did draw a card with the Auron Frostfang as well. Yeah, really surprised that Sythis didn't go down there. So Adeline now a 13-5. And then Hapatra just tapping out and passing, not getting off to the most lightning fast start that some Hapatra decks do get off to. I mean, maybe this Hapatra deck can get off to really fast starts as well and just hasn't had the luck that's involved there. Obviously relies on the cards that you draw into. Sphinx's Tutelage will have the Adeline player mill 2. Oh wow, and then repeated that a bunch of times apparently because it's a mono-coloured deck. So if I remember to do that during editing, I will zoom in on the graveyard and you can have a look. Hopefully you know the names of the cards. But if you don't, you can look those up in your own time. And there's the board wipe. It was only a matter of time. A Black Sun Zenith. It's actually relevant with the Hapatra. So that must have been, yeah, that must have been the board wipe that they took from Hapatra. Because, oh, it gets shuffled into Hapatra's library still because it's not in the graveyard. And the face down card is gone. So, yeah, that must have been Hapatra's. Leaving the Auron Frostfang in play, which is noteworthy. Maybe they couldn't afford to get rid of that. Sythis can go into the command zone. We can reanimate it with the Open the Vaults, but I'll have Sythis hit the graveyard once we actually have some enchantments that we want to reanimate. Some pings went around from the Bastion of Remembrance as well there. That does affect each opponent. So while Auron Frostfang is on -3 power, the Death Touch isn't all that relevant with this, but it still has those static abilities which are relevant, so unfortunately not being able to get rid of that, but the Hapatra player going a bit slower here as we said. Adeline just coming into play again on this turn, that is a 3/6, and still with those enchantments in place, so might be time to go straight in for the Journey to Nowhere. Looks like it's time for us to discard a card to Solitary Confinement as well. Probably get rid of the Aura Shards, because that is pretty obnoxious. And I don't think there's anything that we're too worried about at the moment. What we discard might be dictated by the cards we see on top with Miri's Guile. So, okay, Sylvan Library, a land, or a couple of lands. So let's go for Snow-Covered Plains on top, and then we can go for land, Sylvan Library, and then we can play the land and shuffle if we want to. And I think we're okay getting rid of Aura Shards here. So how's about? We'll go for the Sythis before anything else. And then I'd love to go for Greater Auramancy. Yeah, I don't trust that Adeline not to come in towards us, so I'm just going to go for the Journey to Nowhere now. Actually forgot about the fact that we don't draw a card with the Solitary Confinement, so we're going to miss a land drop here. I would have put the land on top if I'd remembered that. So, slight mistake by me there. I was thinking we were going to draw Sylvan Library and then draw the land from our first enchantment, but yeah, sequencing error. We'll miss our land for the turn. So down goes Adeline once again. They'll need 2 additional mana to get the Adeline out again. Noteworthy that it doesn't stick under the Journey to Nowhere. The Adeline will go back into the command zone. And yeah, can't play the Greater Auramancy thanks to my sequencing error, so pass at that. Things are looking pretty good for us at the moment. Once again holding up that mystical Swords to Plowshares. Awakening Zone for more token shenanigans for Hapatra. And then a Phyrexian Altar. I don't like the idea of having a sack outlet in play, especially with an Aristocrat effect. The Ozolith as well, going down to 3 cards. So this only puts counters on your stuff, I think, at the beginning of combat. Move all the counters from it onto a target creature. Alright, so you can pile minus counters onto another creature. So I'm assuming that they don't have any plus counter stuff in the Hapatra list, otherwise they'd end up putting both minus and plus counters on with the Ozolith. And obviously those cancel each other out. Auron Frostfang, as we said before, doesn't have any power and therefore can't deal any combat damage, so not much point turning sideways here, but doing it just for a goof apparently. Only has 1 toughness, so might not be blocking with it anyway. But going in towards the Adeline player. Pointing the mill from the Sphinx's tutelage towards the Hapatra player this time. Just getting rid of a Wickerbuff Elder and a Yawgmoth Ram Physician. Following that up with a Crypt Gas, so that doubles up your swamps. They have 3 swamps in play at the moment. Noteworthy that they left blue mana up, even though they could have tapped down the non-swamp lands for the Crypt Gas. But not holding up the blue at least. They still had the mana for Phenax, God of Deception. Could have paid into the Extort here, but didn't feel as though they needed to do that. Aethersworn Canonist. Alright, each player who casts a non-artifact spell this turn can't cast an additional non-artifact spell. That's pretty bad for us. Yeah, so maybe it's time for Open the Vaults next turn with Aura Shards. And then we will get... I'm not sure we'll get a creature back into play in order to trigger it. Yeah, Soul Snare doesn't get rid of it. Although Seal of Cleansing does, doesn't it? Because that is an artifact. Yeah, that's an artifact creature, Human Cleric, so our opponent can cast a non-artifact spell here, but looks as though they're choosing not to. So we can do this on our turn. Our opponent might be able to do something at the end of their turn, and maybe we'll wish we had untapped mana here, so we'll look at the top cards of Miri's Guile again. Remember that we do not draw, thanks to the Solitary Confinement. Suppose we could set ourselves up for an Open the Vaults this turn by discarding the Sigil of the Empty Throne. So Solitary Confinement on the stack first. Tiny little bit of a combo with Solitary Confinement setting up the Open the Vaults. Alright, just lands, although one of them is a Serra's Sanctum, so let's go Plains Flooded Strand, still not shuffling those things away unfortunately, but we'll hopefully get into Serra's Sanctum this turn. Discard Sigil of the Empty Throne, and then we'll go Seal of Cleansing onto the Aethersworn Canonist, so that we can do multiple things this turn. And then we want that Serra's Sanctum, so let's go Greater Auramancy. Or do we want Sylvan Library? No, I'll go Greater Auramancy. Draw a card from the Sythis. Play the Serra's Sanctum this turn, so we will get... tap it down for mana. We get 7 mana as it stands now. So why don't we go Citizen Champion, try and refill our hand here. This is on... Yeah, it's when they enter under your control, which will be really good with Open the Vault. So we'll go Citizen Champion, then Sylvan Library to draw those 2 lands that we know are on top. Can't play and crack the Flooded Strand, unfortunately. But the Snow Plains that we have on top as well will be good discard fodder for the Solitary Confinement. So now we get 8 mana from the Serra's Sanctum, which means we can open the vaults. And that triggers the Valor of Akros. Didn't actually see this hit play. Whenever a creature enters under your control, creatures you control get +1/+1 until the end of the turn. Alright, it brings back the Aethersworn Canonist. Let's have a look at Open the Vaults. Oh, it's from all graveyards under their owner's control. Alright, I thought this just affected us. It's everyone. So out comes the Aethersworn Canonist again. I'm actually not against that because it hurts our opponents here, so as well as the Adeline himself. So yeah, that's fine with me. Anyway, Valet of Akros triggers. We get 4 draws from the Citizen Champion. Okay, getting to Ajani's Chosen, which is another means of making tokens. The whole point in this deck is making lots of tokens and creatures, but not doing too well on that front at the moment. Primeval Bounty does the same thing. Finale of Devastation for more enchantresses. We'll have to leave it there, I think. Noteworthy that the Citizen Champion is a 6/8 now as well. Gets those plus counters on it whenever an enchantment enters as well. A little bit nervous about not having the Karmic Justice in play. Something like a Bane of Progress might be good for Hapatra, because it does get plus counters on itself. But wouldn't have thought they'd play out the Bane of Progress when they've just got something as important as Phyrexian Altar into play. Anyway, out comes a tapped Eldrazi Spawn. Does come in tapped thanks to the Blind Obedience. Didn't notice that coming either. I must have missed a previous turn or something. Blind Obedience and Valor of Akros are both in play now. The Eldrazi being sacrificed for mana, so that triggers the Bastion of Remembrance on all of us. We have gone back up to 30 and then down to 29 straight away. Then Hapatra, Vizier of Poisons, back into play again. Luckily does not have haste. And that will be the only non-artifact spell they can cast here, thanks to our accidental reanimation of the Aethersworn Canonist. Made me look like a pro player there, but it was a total accident. Sphinx's Tutelage being pointed back at Adeline. I would certainly focus on Adeline with that thing, simply because they are a monocoloured player. Stand much more chance of milling them a lot more. Still only at 10 cards there. Can't remember where they were. I think we saw Rootborn Defences before. Prava. Yeah, I think those were already in there, so now it's a Plains and a Krovax, as well as another Plains. Now tapping down the Wall of Frost to the Phenax, which only has 2 toughness thankfully, so getting rid of Cabal Coffers and a Forest, so hitting both Yawgmoth and Cabal Coffers. Going for Cryptghast on there as well, might be another board wipe here if they're tapping their creatures. Seeing the back of a Strip Mine, Phyrexian Arena as well, seen some good cards. Phyrexian Arena, often pretty slow for Commander though, nowadays. It's a big spell, whatever it is, maybe Decree of Pain, is it called? Yeah, that's exactly what it is, Decree of Pain. So the board wipe, that refills your hand. They will get 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, it counts their own, so they go up to 9 cards in hand after drawing 7. They do have the Extort to gain some life if they want. Extort really good in multiplayer. They do not pay into that. So seeing another board wipe here, not going to put Sythis in the bin. We've got plenty of mana thanks to the Serra's Sanctum, and Phenax will be able to play another spell now thanks to the Aethersworn Canonist going down. They drew a bunch of cards there as well, so that is 7 Sphinx's Tutelage triggers. Couple of Bastion of Remembrance triggers as well, so good back and forth with life totals here. The Ozolith will have, was it 5 minus counters on it? Yeah, 5 -1/-1 counters going on to the Ozolith. Looks like Sphinx's tutelage being shared between the Hapatra and the Adeline player, not wanting to set us up for mass reanimation with something like Open the Vaults apparently. And then ending their turn with a Diabolic Tutor. We see milled here. Dusk Urchins is really good to get rid of. A land, Sashiro. A doubling season, getting some really good mills on the Hapatra player. And Eldrazi Monument, they're not managing to stick many tokens unfortunately. And then from Adeline we've got Vanquish the Horde, another board wipe going down. Hazda Marshal, a Mirror Entity, Search for Glory, Hour of Reckoning, another board wipe, and Soul's Attendant, Archetype of Courage, a lot of things going down here. Elesh Norn is potentially another board wipe. Dolmen Gate as well, so hopefully that's a lot less board wipes that we're going to be seeing. You would think Phenax would like to keep a lot of creatures in play if he can. Still 60 cards left in the Adeline player's library, so taking a lot of mill, but not quite down too far yet. Discarding a Felwar Stone to hand size there as well. And here we see an Adeline. They are having to tap out for that. I don't hold any hope for them keeping an Adeline in play, unfortunately, and hopefully we're going to make great use of Aura Shards in this next turn. Just debating whether or not to go for Sun Titan with the Finale of Devastation. We can search for any creature with that, so thankfully with the Serra's Sanctum we'll have, I think it's 19 mana we're going to have next turn. So should be able to go for Sun Titan with Finale of Devastation to grab back an Enchantress. And then hopefully Sun Titan can grab another Enchantress back the turn after. As well as start dealing some damage. Don't think we need to do Seal of Cleansing on anything in particular. Sun Titan also makes use of the Seal of Cleansing, of course. So once again we'll go Solitary Confinement, likely just discarding a Snow-Covered Plains here. But we'll have a look on top. On Thin Ice is the card I was referencing before that cares about Snowlands. Heroic Intervention is good to have in hand. Banishing Light's okay as well, so we'll go Banishing Light. I want to draw Heroic Intervention before anything else, so it's on Thin Ice and then Heroic Intervention to protect our board. Then we will discard the Snow Plains to the Solitary Confinement. So we do get 11 mana from the Serra's Sanctum. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Oh, and 19 once we play a land, so I was right on that. So let's just tap the Serra's Sanctum now. And I'll go for the Sythis, which makes an Angel token. Comes in with a 4/4 Angel token. That triggers the Aura Shards. First thing I want to get rid of is the Phyrexian Altar, because you never know when our opponent can combo off out of the blue. Much more happy to see the Aura Shards in play now that we've got a bunch of enchantments and artifacts to worry about. After that, I think it's Anointed Procession. Hapatra scoop in there, yeah, the only ways out was, okay, and everyone scoops to that, so yeah, that's part of the reason that I didn't want Aura Shards in play. It's a pretty back-breaking card and people really don't like playing against it. Maybe they saw the writing on the wall there. We were going to go for Sun Titan into Citizen Champion most likely. So Finale of Devastation grabs Sun Titan, which grabs back the Citizen Champion, and then we can carry on drawing cards with Karmic Justice and Primeval Bounty, stuff like that. I don't think we actually got the Sylvan Library trigger there, did we? At the beginning of the draw step? Oh, that's because we skipped the draw step with this, don't we? Yeah, okay, so that's why that is. But yeah, we were going to get a couple more creatures in play there at least, which would have blown up some more things. And then with the enchantments we play, get into even more angels, blow up even more stuff. The only things left in play are enchantments and artifacts, so surprised that our opponents still had decent life totals and cards in hand, so yeah, I was surprised to see that. We didn't go after the Adeline again, but clearly our opponents thought we were going to run away with it from there. We were certainly ahead of our opponents and might have ended up winning, but we were nowhere near winning that turn. So hopefully you all enjoyed that regardless. Be sure to leave it a thumbs up and a comment if you did, because that helps with YouTube's algorithms and really helps myself and the channel. As does supporting on Patreon, as a few of you do already. Massive thank you to the patrons that support me already. You make it all possible. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.